Let's see where we're going over here. Who we got this? Yes. There we go. Okay. All right. This week's Torah portion. First of all, Shavua Tov, everybody. Good week here. Let's give charity. Charity. We start at Tzion b'mishpat tabara, v'shaveh v'tzedakah as ein ha ein Yisrael ein golim miskabtzim ella b'zchut tzedakah. The exiled Jews that are spread all over the world, physically and spiritually, will not be gathered together except with charity. So let's give charity, and God should protect all of our soldiers and end this war quickly and protect us from our own government. Here we go. Wonderful. Now, let's put this over here. Lift it up a little bit. There we are. Good. All right. This week's Torah portion has in it 98 curses. It's called Parshas Ki Tavo. And it starts off with the commandment of first fruits. And then it says that if you do, God says, if you do what I say, of course, this is Moses saying the whole thing, but everybody knows that it's Moses is just saying the words of God. So it says, if you do as I say, then I will give you all sorts of amazing blessings. And he lists all the blessings. And then it says, but if you don't do what I say, then you're going to get curses. And he really lets us have it. In addition to the 49 curses that we already heard near the end of the book of Leviticus, here we have another 98 curses. Why so many curses? So first of all, we learned, 2 weeks ago, that it said that Bilam wanted to curse us, but God transformed the blessing, the curse to a blessing, because God loves us. God loves us. So comes out the more curses, the better it is. God's going to transform them all to blessings. However, it is after all these terrible curses, at first glance, it's just really shocking. And it's more shocking to understand that we've actually experienced all these. The Holocaust was just the most advertised, and it was the longest. But before that, there were all sorts of pogroms and expulsions and crusades, and Muhammad did a good job also killing a lot of Jews. The communists killed a lot of Jews, and Khmelnytsky killed a lot of Jews. Anyway, however it is, Jews are not new to suffering. So here we have the 98 curses mentioned in this week's Torah portion. But afterwards it says, like this, right near the end, I think it's the last paragraph in this week's Torah reading. And it says that Moses called all the Jews together. And he said, you have seen the big miracles. Maybe I can quote it exactly what it says over here. Let's see, let's find it. Here, it says, here we go. You have seen the big miracles that God has done for you. Here, let's have a look. Let's have a look over here. There it says. Atem ra'item, it says, but Moses called the Jewish people and he said, Atem ra'item, you saw everything that God did before your eyes in Egypt, to Paro and to all of his servants and to all of his land. Right? You all saw it. The fact of the matter is the people going into the land of Israel did not see it, because the ones that did see it, they died in the darkness. But everybody that was under 20 years old, anybody that was under 20 years old when it happened, everyone over 20 years old, they died in the desert. That's why they wandered around for 40 years. But anyone under 20 years saw it. And also they heard it directly from their parents. And also, okay, anyways, Amasot Agadolot, the tests, the big tests here we go. Amasot Agadolot, the big tests, Asher Ra'u Einecha, that God showed you. Right? There wasn't any manna, there wasn't any water, and God provided. V'lo natan Hashem lochem leiv ladat, and God did not give you a heart to know, and einayim lirot, and eyes to see, until this very day. And this is one way that they learn that it takes 40 years for a pupil to actually attain the level of, wisdom and certainty as his teacher. Right? The things that his teacher taught him 40 years ago, these are, of course, ideas in Torah connecting to God. the pupil only becomes mature enough after thinking of these ideas for 40 years that he actually embodies it. Good. 40 years. Okay, but here we see something that seems to be a contradiction. What does it say? It says over there, you have seen the miracles that God has done, that your eyes have seen, right? And then at the end, that's the beginning of the sentence. The beginning of one sentence. Immediately after that, it says, and God did not give you a heart to know or eyes to see. 1 second. In the beginning of the sentence, it says that God, you have seen, and God let your eyes see, right? He said, you have seen, and you have eyes to see. And the end of the same sentence, it says that till this day, you have not had a heart to understand or eyes to see. So they do have eyes, or they don't have eyes. Seemingly, Moses is contradicting himself. So, I mean, maybe you can say, okay, our 40 years they wandered with these Jews in the desert, they drove them crazy. And not only that, Moses was about to he was about to leave the Jews. So maybe, got a little mixed up or something. I mean, you could say that if every word here wasn't the word of God. God is saying these words. He's saying it through Moses. And not only that, it's impossible to say that anything happened to Moses because it says right at the end of the Torah that when Moses died, that he was still young and he was still fresh and that he was not. And the last day that it's right before he passed away, it says that he wrote 13 Sefer Torahs. Huh? And you don't do that if you're, suffering from some sort of an impairment or something. So here we see an obvious contradiction in the Torah. So how do we explain it? I don't know. We have to explain it because it is definitely a contradiction. It says that your eyes have seen, and then it says, but God has not given you eyes to see until today. Okay. The Hutamur, this whole thing is very surprising. What's surprising? Like I said before, it's surprising. Could it be that Moses didn't see what he just said 5 seconds ago? He said that your eyes have seen, and then he said, but you don't have any eyes to see. This is a big question we got over here. The Metechila, first of all, it says, Atem Re'item, it says that you saw, and that you have your eyes saw. And afterwards it says, V'lonatan einayim, but God did not give you eyes to see. Okay, so obviously this is hinting at something that's above what we understand normally. And now we're going to understand it. Ready? Let's understand this. Behold, because it says, Vayita Ishel Be'Beersheva, says that Abraham, this is right after the Akedah. We read this on Rosh Hashanah. Vayita Eshel Be'Beersheva, that Abraham planted a Eshel. Some people say it was like a hotel or it was an oasis, something in Beersheba. Vayikra Sham B'Shem Hashem, and Abraham called over there the name of God, El Olam. We say Kael, El Olam. And he called over there the name of God, El Olam. Right. Now, interestingly enough, in the Torah, the Torah tells us that the father of Judaism is Abraham. And that when Abraham circumcised himself, and that was a covenant that he made with God. And his name got changed, and that was a covenant with God that the Jewish people were founded. And afterwards, to seal that covenant, he took his son Yitzchak, and he took him to sacrifice him. He did what God said. Right? But interestingly enough, I mean, those things have nothing to do with Judaism. What's it got to do with Judaism? What does he want? God didn't make a covenant with us. He made a covenant. You got a covenant last night? You had a covenant? Your father told you, oh, by the way, when I was 30 years old, God made a covenant with me. Made a covenant with him. God doesn't make covenants with people. What's a covenant? I'll breathe. Not only that, circumcising yourself. So you were circumcised when you were 8 days old. You don't have to circumcise. So what exactly did Abraham do? He's the father of Judaism. Here we have a whole book that basically came from this carrying out the mission that Abraham began, and it doesn't tell us what the mission is. It doesn't tell us what Abraham believed. It doesn't tell us what's so special about Judaism. What is what exactly is Judaism? So it doesn't say somewhere that Abraham stood in front of the people and he spoke and he said, "This is the message of the Lord." It doesn't say anything like that. So what exactly was the point of Abraham? What did Abraham exactly contribute? What have we been sacrificing the Jewish people and suffering for all these years just to carry on the message of Abraham? It's not clear what the message was. It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah what it is. What is the message? So in Hasidut Chabad, it explains what the message is. Which, by the way, I mean, just, by the way, that's how I became a religious Jew. It's a long story, but the end of the story is that I heard this big professor speak, and he made this anti-Semitic remark. I interpreted it at least to be an anti-Semitic remark. I mean, it was, he said the only thing bad in the world are the theistic Jews. And I didn't even know what a Jew, I knew I'm a Jew. I had a bar mitzvah. I had no idea absolutely what a Jew is. And why would this guy, this big professor, hate the Jews? So I read the Bible, the 5 books of Moses. And I got to Abraham. I read the whole story. And he's the father of Judaism. God spoke to him, told him all these things, which have nothing to do with religion. Go over here, do this, I'm making a covenant with you. Right? And it doesn't explain what he is. But it was very interesting. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. And it was very, and especially why does this, it was a big professor. Why does he hate the Jews? What's he got? And I don't understand what is Judaism. Even look in the Torah, it doesn't explain what is Judaism. And they're making these sacrifices and building a tabernacle, and they're wandering, and they've got miracles with 10 plagues. For what? What's the point? At least say what's the point. So the Chassidut explains what the point is. It says that Abraham, he made a an oasis, a tent in Beersheba, and he called over there the name of God, God World. That's the message. That's the message of Judaism. God World, not God of the world, like Melech HaOlam, El HaOlam, El Olam, God World. What does it mean? Hine Kasiv, it is written, we're going to see. Hine Kasiv, it is written, Ramal Kol Goyim Hashem, that God is elevated among the non-Jews. Mi Yilo Yerecha, who does not fear you. The Gam Ovdei Kochavim, also the idolaters, they call him Elokada Elokaya. They call him the God of gods, right? The Trinity or whatever you want to call it. They say that God exists, but he's like, maybe number one. But his representative is here. Right? You have to pray to the representative, or maybe God is number 2. The main thing is this. So the idolaters, they believe in God, but they believe that God is separate from the world, and that to be connected to the world, he has emissaries. Like it says, Mizrach Shemesh Ad Mavo Gadol Shemi, from the east until the west, where the sun sets. It says, my name is great. In other words, also the non-Jews, the idolaters, the Hindus and the this and that, the Christians, they all believe in God, but they think that God is very far away. They think that God is separate from the world. That God is like a separate entity, and the world is a separate entity, but God is very strong. That's what the non-Jews believe. That's what idolatry is. Idolatry is, we believe in God, but he's very far away. That's a good example of idolatry. Then there's idolatry which says that this rock is God, or this thing is. Okay, Abraham, he stood and he yelled out, B'Shem Hashem, in the name of God, El Olam, God world. What does it mean? Shashem Havai, that the name Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, Hu El Olam, is the God world. Kula Chad, everything is one. God and the world are totally one. Below Kela Olam, it's not that he's God, he's separate, and the world is something separate. So olam hu yesh v'davar b'fnei atzmo, that the world is a separate entity. The who and God mechayoto, and God, He enlivens the world, and He directs the world, and He's more powerful in the world. But the world is a separate entity, and God is a separate entity. Which that makes sense. I mean, that's the simple narrative of the Bible. How does it start out? God created this thing that's called the world. And in the world, He put more things, which were called plants and animals, and then finally people. And then God starts talking to the people. So God is one character in this saga, whatever this novel, which is called the Bible. And man are other characters. Something like Greek literature, Lahavdil. Right? There are the gods which are up there, and then there's the people down here, and they have these tests, and the gods help them. That's something that's pretty close to the how do you say the simple narrative of the Bible. It's just that we believe in one God, and they believe in all these other gods, that are up in the heads of the stars or whatever. Says the Rebbe, it's not so. Abraham came along to tell us that it's really not so. It's not so. Just like the name of a person, it doesn't come from the essence of a person. But the person's life, a little bit of a person's identity is in his name. Because we see, when they call a person's name, he can wake up. If a person is fainted, right, you call him George. If his name is George, he wakes up. So if so, those letters are somehow or other connected to the person's life. Also the same thing, the name of God. The name of God is clothed in all of the worlds, and they are just garments to fail him love, and they are secondary to God's name. But really it's all one. Huh? Just like when you call a name of a person, right? So you call a name of a person, Shmerel Grois. Then the person turns around, yes, what do you want? So is the name of Shmerel Grois, is that Shmerel Grois? No, it's not. Then why did he turn around? Because the name somehow is connected to him, but it's not him. Or maybe it is him. Isn't that? I mean, the other people can be called Shmerel Grois also. So that's their life also. So it says the Rebbe like this. The name of a person is connected to the person. And the name of the person sends his name on a check. That check is good. You can take it out from that person's bank account. That's his name, right? But it's not really the person himself. On the other hand, it's unified with the person. The same thing is with the world. The whole entire world is just the name of God. The name of God. The name of God is connected directly to the essence of God, but it's not the essence of God. It's all one. The name, just like Shmerel Grois is one with the person, the name Shmerel is one with the person Shmerel Grois. So also the world is one with God. The world is just like the names of God. This is one way of looking at it. This is not talking about after the Torah was given. After the Torah was given, we start to realize that it's true. The world is just a ray of godliness and nothing really exists on its own. But this world is very important to God. And that's why God had created it. And to the degree that we have an effect on God, we give God pleasure. Nachat ruach. It says that God is aroused by our deeds. That's what the idea of prayer. That's what Abraham came along and announced, that things are not like they seem. Don't take the easy way out. Don't think that the narrative, the simple narrative of the Torah is all there is to it. The simple narrative of the Torah, that's like the tip of an iceberg. The tip of an iceberg. And the real essence of the Torah is godliness, pure godliness. And it comes to tell us that the world is a creation of God constantly. And God is constantly creating it from nothing. And why don't we feel it? Because it's being created by a process. And this process is called the names of God. That's what Abraham came to tell us, that this world is one with God. Like it says, on that day, God will be one and his name will be one. I think this is in Hosea, we'll see. It says, in that day, now God's name is Yud, and then Hey, and then Vav Hey, and the future will be Yud Hey, and then Yud Hey again, 2 times Yud Hey. What does it mean? Nowadays, the first 2 letters of God, that's the hidden part of God, and all we see is the Vav Hey, the last part of God's name, so to speak, what God does. But in the future, we're going to see what God is. Yud Hey, Shalo Yiyeh Bebechinas Vav Hey. There won't be any Vav Hey. There won't be any concealment. We won't say that the world is just a creation of God. We'll see God in the creation. Ki vav, the letter vav, which will be done away with in the future. Who bechinas hamshacha? This is drawing down. Sheyochal lishtal shel lamata will be drawn down below. Ad sheyochal liot yesh v'davar, that it can be a separate thing on its own. Ella but sheyakol, everything will be yud hey. In the future, we'll see that everything is really godliness below, just like above. Now, this already was a thing like this when, first of all, it was like that when God created man. When God created man, man saw, felt, was certain that this world is just a big, huge miracle that's being created by God all the time, and that man has responsibility, and that's being created by God all the time. But something went wrong with man. Something went wrong. After that, it happened again. God revealed his essence in this world. That was when he gave the Torah. When he gave the Torah, 3 million people saw it, 600,000 just males, and not counting the children, the women, everyone saw. They saw the essence of God in the world. That's what God wants, that he should be revealed in the world. At Mount Sinai, God did not give the Jews the secret of how to go to heaven. He gave the secret of how to make this world higher than heaven. In other words, to reveal the essence of God in the world. That was the message of Abraham. El Olam. That the world and God are not two separate entities. It says in the future, it's going to be not just in Gan Eden like it was with Adam, or not just on Mount Sinai like it was on like it was when God gave the Torah, and not just in the Holy of Holies, which that's where the same revelation on Mount Sinai was, in the Holy of Holies, not just in one little place in Jerusalem. The whole world will be filled with God. It says on that day, God will be one and his name will be one. That what it says. There's different places to look. Look in the Zohar and okay, and that's what it says. Oh, but Hine, behold, Kativ, Nargan Mafrid Aluf. It's a sentence in Proverbs. Proverbs, chapter 16, sentence number 28 in Proverbs. What does it say? That Nargan, like they say, contentious is like how does it say? Being argumentative, being bitter or something like that. This separates aloof from the leader. Rashi says it separates you from God. In other words, you say troublemakers separate from the king. And also it says Lataiva Yavakesh Nifrad. It says desires, lusts, desire to be separate. So here we have this world, beautiful world, that's being created by God, big miracle. If you look at it, just that the world is just an amazing, fresh miracle, big mystery all the time, unless you want to make trouble. Man has been given a big gift by God, the gift of the ability to make trouble. You can separate yourself from God if you want. That's what it says. Lataiva, when a person that has desires, lusts, that wants to be separated. When a person puts his will and his desires of the world or he wants to be victorious, he has his way. He has to have his way. Then what's going to happen? Umidos ros and selfishness, God forbid, then he becomes separate. It cannot be God is one and his name is one. Like I told you so many times, I saw in a mimer of the Rebbe, I think it was the Bati Lagani and Tavshin Chaf Ches, I think, I have to look and see. And he said that man is made in God's image. Right? It says, let us make man in our image. And it says, since then, man is made in God's image, that man has the option, if he wants to think that he's God. That's what it means. God made us in his image. What does God's image mean? God is reality. God is the only reality. All reality comes from him. But we can think that we're God. And we can think that we're the only reality. And like I said, I saw there were a couple of movies that one was called the Secret or something like that, and the other one was called What the Blip is Going On. And these movies, they take what was discovered by quantum physics, that if a person observes something, that energy changes the thing. So you can never really know what's going on, because as soon as you put energy into it, it changes it. So from that, they drew the conclusion that really everything that exists is just from your energy, your imagination. So in other words, that's like the ultimate level of I am God. I'm creating the whole business. I'm creating. Okay, you can do it. You can do it. God made us that way, that if you want to, you can make your own little world and believe that you're the God and you're the leader. There are a lot of people that did it, right? Stalin did it. The Nebuchadnezzar did it. We know the Nazis did it. Okay, so it says when a person really has desires, lusts, how do you say, the selfishness, bad egotism, as that gives birth to what's all sorts of bad character traits, and this he wants to be separate. Then cannot be God is one and his name is one, and that's why Abraham had to come into the world and try to fix it up. That's what happened with Adam. Adam said, God says this, but I say this. God says, don't eat from the tree. I say, yeah, makes me feel good. Looks like it's good. I'm going to try it. I mean, Adam didn't have much experience, right? I mean, they didn't have anybody to learn from also. But God told him directly, don't do it. But here we see the example where God says one thing and people say, okay, God has his right to his opinion, but it's a free world. I have my opinion, and he ate from the tree. That's what it means. And the first one to fix this up, and there's Adam purposely separated himself from the oneness of God. And the first one to really fix this up was Abraham. The first one was fix it up to announce that the purpose of this world is to fix up the world, to reveal the godliness in the world, and not to go to heaven. That's just another step, perhaps the ultimate step in selfishness. That you think not only this world, but also the upper worlds are mine. I want it all. Well, Pirish, that's what it means, the Oras Panim. That's what it means when God shines his face on you. Like that it says, may God shine his face on you. Yorasham Panavitano Sela. May God shine his face on us always. Pirish, Bechinas Oras Panim. What is this shining of God's face? What does this mean? Who kamashal adam, like a person hanotin la'ovo, that gives to his beloved is a davar, a thing. Who notain be'ayin yafeh, and therefore he gives with great pleasure and great, how do you say, great the shining face. The rotzon atov, with a good will, but salvo panov, and another word, and willful and smiling. Mirov ora b'simcha, right? You want to give something to your good friend. You give him a gift. Thank you very much, Masha Enkin, which is not the case lasono, which is not the case to somebody that he hates. Right? You're forced to give it to court orders that you have to pay this man $1,000. You hate the guy. You know that he's wrong. But on the other hand, what can you do? He put in false witnesses, so you have to give him the money. How do you give him the money? No ten command the shari batar kasve. It's like you're throwing it over your shoulder. And so that's how God creates the world. Certain things in the world that God creates because he wants them to be here, and certain things God creates because he has to do it. What do you mean he has to do it? He has to do it. God wants there to be a world. He decided there's going to be a world. If there's going to be a world, so the world has to be a real world. A real world is a place where you can defy God. That's a world. If God didn't want that, then he would leave it with the hands of the angels. So that's what it means, that God should shine his face on you. That God should give you life from this level, haros panim, from a shining face, which is not the case by sinners. By sinners, God keeps them alive, right? God keeps the whatever is the Babylonians and the Romans that destroyed the first temple and the second temple. He kept them alive and gave them success, right? They conquered the whole world. But he does it because that's the way he wants the world to be, that there's a choice that you can choose. And if every time a person chose bad, he would automatically die or he would get paralyzed. So there wouldn't be any free choice anymore. Who would choose bad? That's sort of the downside of the future redemption. It says, remember in Hayom Yom, that when the future redemption comes, we'll long for the exile. Are we going to long for the exile? What are we going to long for? What? For the Holocaust? What are we going to long for? And it says we'll long for the fact that we could defeat the dragon. We could defeat our bad urges. We could defeat our selfishness. In the future, it won't be that way. In the future, it'll be obvious. A person won't want to go against God. God is creating us. But that's what it means. That God will shine his face. God will shine his face on us. What does it mean, shine his face on us? That we'll see the truth, the fact. But this we said before, who itano is only for us, the Jewish people. This is when we shine our face to God, like reflecting waters. So when we shine our face to God, as God shines his face to us. In other words, when we're grateful to God that he's creating us, and we're grateful to God that he's empowering us, and we're grateful to God that he gives us the challenges and that he gives us power to stand in these challenges, and we're grateful to God that he gave us responsibility and that God made everybody different. We're grateful to him, so we shine our face to him, so God shines his face to us. God reacts to what we do. Like it says, like water, just like water reflects a face, also the heart of man reflects a man. Very interesting thing, nature of person. You ever see this? I got a perfect proof of this. Amazing. There's an amazing thing which you can see in nature, which proves that God reacts to us. How do you see it? If you smile at a baby, even I think even less than a year old, half a year old, if they can see, if you smile at them, the chances are 99%, whatever, that they'll smile back at you. Now, these children do not know what it means to smile. They didn't look in a mirror and know that if you go like this, then it goes like that. If you go like this, right? They didn't know why in the world did they smile, because they are reflecting what you give to them. How do they know that they're reflecting, right? They know that this is a smile and that what you're doing, because when you shine good to someone, even the person doesn't understand it, but it's an automatic reflection back. When people get a little bit older, so they think, what is this guy smiling at me for? What does he want? What is he, right? And maybe he's not genuine. Maybe it could be also with babies. If you're not genuine, it could be maybe they also don't smile. I've never, maybe I'll have to find somebody who's not genuine to smile, but I see a baby makes me happy. So they feel happy. In any case, a genuine smile elicits a smile. The same thing is also that's not really 100% proof, but at least, some sort of a psychological thing. It's not psychological, obviously. It's somehow automatic. They shine back to you, right? Shine back to you. I can understand if you make a face, like that, so it scares them. So from the fright, they're not making it's just a reaction. But here, why should they react to my smiling face? I'm not doing anything good. I'm not threatening. I'm not giving them anything good. I'm just smiling. Why should it be? So it's the same thing also. Pirish Adam Atachton, that we, what does it mean? What is the man from below? That's the Jewish people. Knesset Yisrael. Like it says, Itanu, etna sa'oni tzon meriti adamatem. Like it says, I have made my flock, this flock that I have been shepherding, feeding, adamatem, you are called man. This is a prophecy to the Jewish people. You, Jewish people, are called man. Adam, the first man, was really a Jew, because God, it says, that's how the Tanya says, that God blew into Adam a second soul, a godly soul. Adam had a second soul. And when Adam sinned, the second soul went into slumber or whatever, a coma or something. And Abraham was the first one to wake it up. What's this godly soul? Godly soul that feels and knows that there's nothing except for God. The whole world is a big miracle created by God all the time. But one of the things that God created was also free will, and we can go against God if we want. So it's a big trial, a big test, right? A big test. And up to Abraham, everybody did pretty much whatever they wanted to. There were exceptions once in a while. Noah was an exception. Noach and Metushalach, it says, were an exception. And then there was Chanoch, these people. But those were rare exceptions, right? And Adam was the first one that tried to advertise his feeling that God is the creator. He advertised everything, not just the Jews, all of God's creations. So it says, you are called man. What does it mean? It says, Leva Adam La Adam. Just like water reflects one face to another, also the heart of man to the man. Who is this other man? Man is the Adam Elyon. This is the upper man that sits on the throne. In the vision of Isaiah and Ezekiel also, they saw a man sitting on a throne. What's this man sitting on the throne? It explains in Kabbalah that this is the configuration of God's aspects of Atzilut. In any case, they saw it. I mean, the world is in an order, and the order comes from higher order and higher order. So this higher order, this plan of the world, that's what's called the 10 Sfirot. And they saw this, Atem Karim Adam, and the Jewish people are made directly in this image. Now, all mankind is made in this image. But it says by the Jews, it says, the Jewish people are the Tselem. It says more the Tselem, and the whole rest of the world is the Demut. However it is, the Jewish people are supposed to teach the whole world what it means, the image of God. That's what Adam did. Adam, by the way, that's what Abraham did. Abraham, by the way, when Abraham circumcised himself, so God said, he changed his name. And he said, up to now your name was Avram, which means a very high father. Ram means high, Av. And when he circumcised himself, he said, now that's it. You're not going to be high anymore. You're going to come into the world. Avraham, the father of all the world. It says the father of many nations. And Rashi, others explain, what does it mean of the whole world? That Abraham's message is going to be spread to the whole world. That's the job of the Jews. This, when God shines his face to the Jewish people, this is like it says, Yismach Yisrael Bosav, that the Jewish people rejoice in their creator. Just like God, Sasva Sameach, is happy and rejoices in us. Like it says, says in the happiness that you were happy in Abraham, and you changed his name from Avram to Abraham. Hashem, this is the joy of God. From God's greatness, which has no end. So we see that God has a personality, and that God reacts to what we do, and that if we don't do right, we saw what happened, there was the flood, but if we do what's supposed to be, and then God shines his face on the world. What does it mean he shines his face? That he shows the world that they're beloved by him. God is creating them. God is creating every single non-Jew in the world. God is also creating every animal, but the animals can't appreciate it, and every plant, and every rock, and every planet, and every angel. The angels appreciate it. It says that's why the angels are all crying out. That's the job of the Jewish people, is to educate the whole world to this. Oh, now don't forget that what we're talking about now, we're trying to explain what Moses said to the Jewish people, that you have seen God's miracles, but today up to today you did not have eyes to see. So did they see or they didn't? No, that's the explanation. So we said Abraham said that God is one, and God means that the world and God are not separate. But people can separate if they want to. God reacts to what we do, and so we have to. If God reacts to what we do negatively, how much more so positively? That's like a mashal adam, like a person shetzavahu panim, that a person is happy, his face is shining, mirov or of a simcha, from great joy, kisharoyat avo, when he sees someone that he loves truly, bebechinas haras panim, in a shining face. V'shocheach lagamri al tzaro, and he forgets on all of his troubles. V'yagono sheyeshlo machvas simcha, because of the great joy. V'tainug, and pleasure, meros penei ha'oavo, from the face of the one that he loved. I mean, maybe here's a story. I hope this is I told you about Rabbi Mendel Futterfest. Where is it? I had pictures of him. Where is it? Anyway, Mendel Futter. Oh, here we go. Here's a nice picture. Here, this picture of Rabbi Mendel Futavas. That's a drawing. But I have, there's pictures over here. Oh, here, see? Beautiful picture. Rabbi Mendel Futavas. Wow. Anyway, so he was in Siberia for a long time and he suffered and this, and I have a lot of wonderful stories about it. And one of the stories is that he was put into prison before the previous Rebbe passed away in Siberia. And they tortured him over there. There was terrible things that happened, which he never talked about. He just said that he was tortured, but he didn't say what it was. Anyway, so he was in prison. So they would take them out to interrogate them. They wanted to find out other Hasidim, other names, whatever. He would never break. By that time, the previous Rebbe was the previous Rebbe. He passed away in 1950, right? So they put Rabbi Futafas in this, I think, in it must have been 1947 or something. They put him into prison. They put him in there for 47. So they brought him into interrogation and they told him that your great Rebbe that you thought was invincible, that this and that, he died. And they did it with very not nice words, And they said that he's died. So Reb Mendel just was quiet. So they said to him, you're not such a big follower of the Rebbe like your friend, Rabbi Moshe Veshetsky. Rabbi Moshe Veshetsky was another, I think even his picture is here also. Rabbi Moshe Veshetsky, he's a bigger chassid than you because when we told him, he fainted. He fainted. Why don't you faint? So he said, I don't faint for two reasons. First of all, that I was worried that something like this would happen. And second of all, I've lived this idea in my mind before. In other words, I was worried that something like this would happen in a person, so it's not a total surprise to me. Let's see if I can find this picture. Nice pictures in this book. Anyway, so number two is the Rebbe has a son-in-law, and I'm sure that his replacement will take over. He'll do the job. So we're not alone. So in other words, the joy that he had from knowing that the pain that he had from knowing that the previous Rebbe was not there anymore was done away with by the knowledge that his son-in-law would take over. How he knew exactly that the Rebbe was going to be Rebbe, but he must have had, sense that it was going to happen. Okay. I don't know if that's a good example, but says when you're happy about something that does away with all of the pain that there was before, like a person, yes, okay. So when you see a good friend that you haven't seen in a long time, I told you that other story about him also. Oh, that's a better story. Oh, yeah, forget that story that I just told you. I told you the other story. And that Reb Mendel, when he was in prison, they would take them out to interrogation in the middle of the night, and there were two soldiers, policemen at each side, and that if you moved to the right or left, they had the right to shoot you. And it so happened that when they took him out, by accident, they took this Moshe Veshetsky also out. They weren't supposed to do it. They were supposed to take only one person at a time. They took him out, and when they saw each other, they both broke away from their guards, and they hugged each other. They were so happy to see one another, they hugged each other. That's a good example. Oh, they totally forgot their pain. They forgot where they were. And the happiness of seeing one another, that totally did away with all the pain that they had. Also, when a person remembers God, that God really loves us, truly, He's creating us. He's born, and when you start to contemplate on God's greatness, that God fills all the worlds, we can appreciate God. He's creating everything. The soul we call him, he's infinitely above the world. But Kula Command, everything in front of God is like nothing. God is infinitely real, and the whole world is infinitely not real. It's just a creation. When you think about this, you'll forget about yourself. And that's the secret of good. That's the secret of good. That's the secret of happiness, not thinking about yourself. Afilu yesh lo tsar, even if a person has difficulties from the world, yishkach atzar, will forget the pain, because of the joy that he has in God. You think God is creating everything. God's creating me. And God loves me, he's creating me. Like it says, the example of this is King David. King David had terrible, terrible problems. Death was lurking for him around every corner. His family wanted to kill him, and his best friends wanted to kill him, and his advisors wanted to kill him. And King David said, "Who do I have in heavens? With you, I don't want to be with you in the earth. I only want to be you. I don't want to be something separate, that I am with you." Lebatel kol chayfetz, he has no desire whatsoever. Zulat hashuka, just one thing, to be with God. In other words, to do what God wants in this world. That's what right? God, you put me here. I'm going to do whatever you want to here. That's what you want. Right? I would like to get out of the world. The world is so terrible, so much pain and so much trouble. But God, that's not what you want. And I want what you want. The world is terrible. I don't feel it. You put me in a difficult situation. When is this shining of God's face? When we feel God's oneness. We feel God's oneness. We feel the truth. This is on Rosh Hashanah. On Rosh Hashanah, God sits on the throne of mercy. And then it says, it says that God's left arm is under my head. Hatchalatit karvut is the beginning of coming close to God until Yom Kippur and Simchat Torah. And it says on Yom Kippur, from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, God's left arm is under, it's a sentence in the Song of Songs. His left arm is under my head. And when it comes to the joy of Sukkot and Simchat Torah, then it says, and his right arm embraces me. That says like the sukkah. The sukkah is like a right arm. It says the sukkah has to have two walls, and one is a tefach, and that's the sukkah. I'll get a picture of it here, like this. See, so sukkah is the two walls, and a tefach. That's sufficient, the minimum for a sukkah. It says that's God's right arm embracing us. That's the shining of God's face. That's the shining of God. It begins on Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, and then Simchat Torah. This is God's embracing us. And the 10 days of tshuva, a person has to be ashamed in front of God that God is doing everything he can to shine his face on us, and we keep far away from him. Mipnei avonos, because of our own selfishness and our own sins and mistakes and transgressions that separate us from us, God. Like it says, Boshti v'nichlamti laharim Elokai panai alecha. I am ashamed, it's part of the slichos. I am ashamed and I am embarrassed to raise my face in front of you. That's talking about the 10 days of tshuva. So again, what are we talking about? We're talking about how it is that Moses could say that you saw the great miracles. In the years we were in the desert in Egypt, you saw the miracles, but until now, you didn't have eyes to see. You didn't see anything. Did you see or didn't you see? So the Rebbe is saying, what does it mean to see God? To see God means to see the truth, that God is creating everything, and he's creating us, and that he loves us. God's love. To see and feel God's love. That's what it means to really see. God shines his face on us. We get a little bit of a glimpse of this on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and on this we're going to talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. And now let's do the Yom Yom, the Davar Malchut.